The largest country in South America, Brazil occupies almost half the continent. Nearly all of it is in the southern hemisphere, and much of it is tropical, with vast stretches of rainforest filled with exotic plants and wildlife. Brazil's 7,400-kilometer Atlantic coast is lined with golden sand beaches, and its interior is filled with mineral resources. Gold from Brazil's mines still lines the churches of Portugal, the colonial power that ruled Brazil until 1822. This strong Portuguese influence is evident in Brazil's colonial architecture, in decorative arts such as the glazed tiles in its churches and convents, and in the language. To discover the best places to visit and things to do, use this handy list of the top tourist attractions in Brazil. 1. Cristo Redentor and Corcovado, Rio de Janeiro. With arms outstretched 28 meters, as if to encompass all of humanity, the colossal Art Deco statue of Christ, called Cristo Redentor, Christ the Redeemer, gazes out over Rio de Janeiro and the bay from the summit of the Corcovado. The 709-meter height on which it stands is part of the Tijuca National Park, and a rack railway climbs 3.5 kilometers to its top, where a broad plaza surrounds the statue. Completed in 1931, the 30-meter statue was the work of Polish-French sculptor Paul Landowski and Brazilian engineer Heitor de Silva Costa, and is constructed of reinforced concrete and soapstone. The 8-meter base encloses a chapel that is popular for weddings. Although this is one of Brazil's most readily recognized icons, it is often mistakenly called the Christ of the Andes, confused with the older statue marking the boundary between Argentina and Chile. 2. Sugarloaf, Rio de Janeiro. The easily recognized emblem of Rio de Janeiro, the rounded rock peak of Sugarloaf juts out of a tree-covered promontory, rising 394 meters above the beaches and city. Its summit is one of the first places to visit for tourists, for views of Rio and the harbor, and for the thrill of riding suspended in a cable car between Sugarloaf and the Morro da Urca, a lower peak from which a second cableway connects to the city. Rio's first settlement began below these peaks, near the long Praia de Urca beach, and you can tour one of the 3 early forts there, the star-shaped Fort São João. 3. Iguacu Falls. At the point where Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina meet, the Iguacu River drops spectacularly in a semicircle of 247 waterfalls that thunder down into the gorge below. Just above the falls, the river is constricted to 1/4 of its usual width, making the force of the water even stronger. Some of the falls are more than 100 meters high, and they cover such a broad area that you'll never see them all at once, but you do get the broadest panorama from the Brazilian side. Catwalks and a tower give you different perspectives, and one bridge reaches all the way to one of the largest, known as the Garanta do Diablo, Devil's Throat. 4. Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro. Downtown Rio's most fashionable and famous section follows Avenida Nossa Senhora de Copacabana and is bordered all along one side by 4 kilometers of white sand and breaking surf. The beach is separated from the buildings and traffic by a broad promenade paved in black and white mosaic in an undulating pattern, reminiscent of streets in Lisbon, Portugal. The beach isn't just for show. It's also a popular playground filled with sun worshippers, swimmers, and kids building sandcastles whenever the weather is fine. Stroll the streets here to find restaurants, smart shops, cafes, and beautiful old buildings from the days when Rio was Brazil's capital. 5. Carnaval, Rio de Janeiro. Few shows match Rio's pre-Lenten Carnival, extravaganza for color, sound, action, and exuberance. Make no mistake, this is not just another rowdy street party, but a carefully staged showpiece where spectators can watch the parades of competing samba dancers from a purpose-built stadium designed by none other than Brazil's best-known architect, Oscar Niemeyer. Called the Sambódromo, this long series of grandstand boxes provides ringside seats to a 700-meter parade route where dancers and musicians from the competing samba schools strut their stuff in a dazzling explosion of brilliant costumes. 6. Ipanema. Beyond the beaches of Copacabana, the glorious white sands merge into the just as famous beaches of Ipanema. The same wave design of Copacabana's wide promenade continues here, separating the sand from the line of hotels, restaurants, cafes, art galleries, and cinemas that make this a popular social zone year-round. Farther along, beyond the Jardim de Alacanal, which drains Lagoa Rodrigo de Freitas Lagoon, are the beaches of Leblon. With more locals and fewer tourists, these beaches are favorites for families. Sunday is especially busy, with an antiques market at Praça de Quintaland and the Feira de Artesano de Ipanema alive with music, art, handcrafts, and street food. 7. Amazon rainforests. About 20 kilometers southwest of Manaus, the dark Rio Negro waters meet the light muddy water of the Rio Somoles, flowing side by side for about 6 kilometers before mixing as the Amazon. Boat trips from Manaus take you to this point, called Encontro das Aguas, meeting of the waters. Other boat trips take you into the heart of the rainforests and the network of rivers, channels, and lakes formed by the 3 rivers. In the Rio Negro, the Anavilhalas Islands form an archipelago with lakes, streams, and flooded forests that offer a full cross-section of the Amazonian ecosystem. 8. Brasilia's modernist architecture. Brazil's new city of Brasilia was carved out of the wilderness and completed in less than 3 years to replace Rio de Janeiro as the country's capital in 1960. The ambitious plan by Lucio Costa and Oscar Niemeyer became a showpiece of city planning and avant-garde architecture, and it remains today as one of the world's few cities that represent a completed plan and a single architectural concept. Without the normal mix of residential and business districts, the entire governmental section is composed of major architectural highlights, which are the city's main tourist attractions. Some of the most striking surround Praça dos Três Poderes, the presidential palace, Supreme Court, and the 2 sharply contrasting Congress buildings, plus the Historical Museum of Brasilia and the Panteão de Liberdade, Pantheon of Freedom, designed by Oscar Niemeyer. 9. Salvador's Pelourinho. The Cidade Alta, upper town of Brazil's former colonial capital, has been named a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its exceptional collection of 17th and 18th century colonial buildings, the finest such ensemble in South America. Called the Pelourinho, this old quarter is where you'll find Salvador's most beautiful churches and monasteries, built at a time when Brazil was the source of Portugal's riches, and the plentiful gold was lavished on the colony's religious buildings. 10. Ouro Preto. The wealth of Brazil's state of Minas Gerais, in its glory days of the capital period, is easy to imagine from the interiors of the churches in its old capital, Ouro Preto. Entire walls are washed in gold that flowed, along with diamonds, from the mines surrounding the city in the 17th and 18th centuries. Cascading down the sides of a steep valley and surrounded by mountains, Ouro Preto is a jewel of a colonial town, but its steep, narrow streets and mountain setting, however captivating for tourists today, didn't meet the needs of a growing provincial capital. The government moved to the newly built capital of Belo Horizonte, leaving Ouro Preto in its time capsule. That was all from us today, folks. For more similar content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.